Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the biggest show on television right now, HBO's Game of Thrones. As the final season prepares to wrap up and this season finale coming on Sunday, fans have been a little upset about the way things have been going so far in season 8, and I was trying to give it a fair chance too. That's why I hadn't commented on it specifically too much yet, but after last week's shocking penultimate episode and all the drama in the fandom over the last few weeks, well, I can no longer just stand by and watch. Guys, unfortunately, it looks like Game of Thrones may have ruined their whole track record with this final season. Some are even already comparing it to Dexter and Lost, two other beloved TV shows that really blew it in their endings. And well, Game of Thrones seems to be on track to do the same thing, unless somehow this final episode saves everything, but I really highly doubt it. But what is it specifically that's getting the fans so pissed off? Well, it's a combination of things really, and without getting into too many spoilers today, a lot of it has to do with the characters, disappointing ends to their character arcs, and one other big annoyance that has unfortunately become commonplace in modern entertainment: subverting expectations. Yes, this is something that has been done before. It's been done throughout history in fact, but usually subverting expectations has a point to it, like it's done for a comedic effect or some sort of surprise ending or twist or something. But as of late, a number of artists in popular media, they've been subverting expectations just for the sake of it. Star Wars The Last Jedi of course comes to mind here. That movie tried to subvert expectations left and right, just for the sake of it. And because the writer and director Rian Johnson thought it was a cool thing to do for some reason. He seems to think it makes him look smarter than everyone else, but really, he just looks like he's trying to be smart, and he looks like he has a round head and a baby face. And well, the Game of Thrones writers have been accused of doing the same kinds of things too. That's why many have called this season of Thrones the Last Jedi of television. And this is very fitting too, since the Game of Thrones writers' next project will be a new Star Wars movie, set to be released in 2022, about 3 years from now. Can't say I'm looking forward to that too much now either, and I don't think many others are at this point, especially with the controversial ending to Game of Thrones that we're going through right now. Now, I will admit these kinds of high-profile, well-liked TV shows are extremely hard to end in the first place. There's really no easy way to make everyone happy here, but Game of Thrones appears to have made almost everyone not happy and upset in one way or another. And that brings us to the topic of the day. Fans are signing a petition in large numbers, asking for Game of Thrones Season 8 to be rewritten and reshot with, quote, competent writers. That's right, thousands of fans have already signed on to this petition too, and it's growing exponentially throughout this week. Now, I will admit, petitions are admittedly not my thing, and they're usually a waste of time too, but they are a good way for people to show their interest or disgust in 2019. And from what I've seen so far, I would say this petition is more symbolic than literal. I highly doubt all these people are actually thinking HBO would rewrite and reshoot a whole season of one of its shows, let alone a season of one of its most expensive shows out there. Regardless, let's take a look at some of the coverage of this now famous petition, and then later we will talk about some of the actors on the show, who appear to be disappointed about this season too. For starters though, let's look at an article from USA Today called "More than 450,000 Game of Thrones fans signed petition calling for a redo of season 8. Wow, that number sure is climbing fast. It was only like 16,000 who had signed by yesterday, and now we're at almost 500,000. So with all that said, let's go ahead and read on here and see why they're all signing. Lots of Game of Thrones fans would like to forget season 8 ever happened. At least 466,000 to be exact, as of 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. They've signed a petition calling on HBO to remake the show's final season with a new writing team. The petition's creator, Dylan D. of Fort Worth, Texas, argues showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who diverged from author George R.R. Martin's source material beginning in season 6, have proven themselves to be woefully incompetent writers when they have no source material, i.e. the books, to fall back on. He pleaded, "This series deserves a final season that makes sense. Subvert my expectations and make it happen, HBO." One fan, Penny Ann, who signed the petition, explained, "I have loved Game of Thrones since the beginning. All the twists and turns, but this season is the worst yet. It's too rushed. Needs more episodes. Ugh, so disappointing." Yeah, I have to say, lots of good points here already. Many people have complained about things like this since the series diverged from the source material in season 6. To be fair though, they really had to diverge. George R.R. Martin writes books slower than molasses, so there was no more source material to pull from after season 5. But still, this was not a good sign. Things just got weird starting from then, and most notably, things got more feminist and subversive. For example, I made another video about Game of Thrones going full feminist and social justice warrior back in 2017 during the 7th season. That was when we started to realize that Daenerys Targaryen, or Khaleesi, the blonde chick on the show, well, she became this overpowered, unstoppable, could never do anything wrong strong, girl power type character. Sound familiar to anyone? Because, yeah, she was kind of like the Captain Marvel of 2017. In all the wrong ways, though. Next, I have to say, I agree with the idea that this Season 8 feels a little rushed. I don't know why they chose to do just 6 long episodes here, but it seems like it would have been much better to do just a 10 normal episode run, the 1-hour episodes like they usually do. I don't know, I just feel like they wanted to go out with a big bang here, but as it's played out now, things aren't looking to be going that way. Many have been especially dissatisfied of the final character arc for Daenerys Targaryen, played by Emilia Clarke. While the Iron Throne has been her goal practically since the beginning of the series, she was previously able to curb her worst impulses in favor of doing what was right. In previous seasons, Dany spoke of how she wanted to leave the world a better place than her evil father, the Mad King Aerys II. But since the Battle of Winterfell ended, she has been impatient, and in last week's penultimate episode, she went full Mad Queen. In a survey of more than 133,000 Thrones fans in Reddit's popular r Game of Thrones community, 86% thought Dany's actions weren't justified. Yeah, so I think much like the girl power shit from Season 7, Season 8's Daenerys is also becoming very controversial. Seems like the writers just can't get girl characters like this right. Not anymore, especially considering another one they messed up. There was another big complaint about Arya Stark's character this season, who in an earlier episode popped up out of nowhere and killed one of the show's biggest villains. A surprise that shocked us all, but not really in a good way. And I think a lot of these errors goes back to the feminist SJW bullshit too. The writers are getting too influenced by progressive politics, so it's affecting the way they make these girl characters. Instead of just writing them how they want to and how they need to be for the show, there's a lot of politics involved with girls on screen in 2019. And back to the Captain Marvel comparison, it's like everything with a girl in it nowadays has to represent feminism and girl power, when really it doesn't, and it shouldn't, and it might be better if they stopped trying to. Game of Thrones and even Captain Marvel, they could have ignored all that feminist crap and made better products, but instead, they let outside factors influence their process, which made their products even worse. Next, I want to briefly go over another article that's really on the other side of this story. Instead of identifying the problems and complaints of the fan base, this Forbes article blames us for it and says we are the problem basically. It's called Game of Thrones is having its Last Jedi Mass Effect 3 fan rage moment. Check this bullshit out. No, I'm not going to write an entire article about the very dumb petition that fans are currently signing to get someone to rewrite and remake Season 8 of Game of Thrones. Online petitions are inescapably stupid and pointless, and yet there's a large issue at play here where I can clearly see the ending of Game of Thrones as the next big pop culture meltdown that takes place, depending on how next week goes. But honestly, I think it's too late to bring the plane in for a proper landing. We went through an ugly version of this with The Last Jedi, where fans decried that the Luke seen in the film wasn't their Luke, and they bemoaned that Rian Johnson had ruined their beloved hero and the entire franchise as a result of that and other events in the film. Here we see some fans complaining that this isn't their Daenerys or their Jaime, to a certain extent, and claiming that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are dropping the ball on the end of a series a decade in the making. More than that, taking into account George R.R. Martin's books. Wow, this Forbes writer sure is a piece of work, huh? First of all, we all know that online petitions are usually silly and pretty pointless. And as I said before, most people signing and talking about this one, we really don't think they will refilm this whole season. It's just a gesture, a way for the fans to push back in one of the only big ways we can. The petition is being signed to send a message more than anything, but yeah, keep pretending all the signers are seriously crying man babies. And I love how the guy is defending the nearly indefensible here too. And also, like what happened with The Last Jedi backlash, this guy is turning around and blaming the fans and attacking us. And that's never a good look for a company or a writer. And back to The Last Jedi comparison some more, when the fans complained that Luke Skywalker in that film wasn't their Luke, they had a good reason to. Rian Johnson completely overhauled the character and made him a weak-willed, defeated hermit who had given up hope instead of the traditional, heroic, very optimistic Luke Skywalker we all knew and grew to love in the past. Also, even Mark Hamill, the actor who plays Luke himself, he agreed that Rian Johnson took his movie and character the wrong way. That's why you can find loads of different press interviews online with Mark Hamill bashing The Last Jedi and sometimes even Rian Johnson, that dumbass. And that brings us to our final segment for today too, because now we've got loads of cast interviews from the Game of Thrones crew. There are interviews going around online where the actors are pulling a Mark Hamill, basically, because they too were not happy with the way their longtime beloved characters were handled in these latest releases. Let's go ahead and check out these clips and you'll see what I'm talking about.
And are you happy with how things ended? Yes. She didn't say yes. You didn't say yes.
Best season ever!
It's the best. It's the best season ever.
Without telling us anything, because I know you can't, are you all happy with the way with the outcome of the show? Personally, or just happy?
Wow, these are not very flattering reactions to say the least. Looks like these guys want to say they hated it too, but they're probably contractually obligated to stay quiet. But at the same time, they can't really hide their faces 24/7. And with all the interviews and questions they've been getting lately, little moments of honesty like this are bound to pop up. And they really say a lot about things too. It's also interesting to see the actors for Daenerys in the last clip and Bran Stark in this one, because these are two characters of the show who have had some of the worst conclusions and arcs in the last season at least. We already went over Dany's feminism bullshit and her Mad Queen ending from last week, but there's also a lot of bad shit to say about Bran Stark, played by the actor in the middle of this picture here. His character has been set up and teased for years now. Bran became the three-eyed raven, and many thought he would finally do something cool this season, but unless he really breaks through with something worthwhile in this final episode coming up, so far, Bran has really been a total waste of time and energy, doing almost nothing this entire series, besides sitting in a chair and being weird.
Couldn't let you go without asking you a little question about Game of Thrones.
Sure.
If you could describe the season finale of Game of Thrones in one word, how would you describe it?
Disappointing.
Disappointing?
No, epic. I don't know.
Epic.
One of those.
Jesus Christ, even the Jon Snow actor is directly saying the series finale was disappointing. Maybe he's playing this off as a joke here, but I think that was to save face. What slipped out is much more telling. Jon Snow, played by Kit Harington, well, Jon's one of the biggest and main characters in the series now, someone who many thought would win the entire Game of Thrones. And well, even he is disappointed in the ending here, and that really says a lot. In the end, I think we can all see why 500,000 fans have signed this petition. Season 8 of Game of Thrones has been controversial to say the least, and very disappointing and dumbfounding to say the worst. The combination of lacking source material, infusing feminism, and trying to subvert expectations for no reason has really taken its toll on one of the world's most famous and favorite TV shows. I really do hope this final episode on Sunday could maybe save this all a little bit, but I'm not sure that will happen at all. Even the best finale in the world can't save Game of Thrones from all the mistakes we've already seen. What do you guys think? Should Game of Thrones refilm its last season? Why are writers and directors trying so hard to subvert expectations in current year? And what do you think about the cast seeming to be so disappointed about the ending here? Comment your thoughts and everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.